Hello there, Seraphim17 once again, introducing you to my Mass Effect 3 Insanity Difficulty video walkthrough. We're just about to land on Palaven, the Turian homeworld, and you may be wondering why I'm not trying harder to shoot these husks. At first I thought that they were like I thought they were decorational. I thought they would not come to this area where we land, but it turns out that they do. So I wasn't saving ammo, I was just, enabling them to get closer than they probably should. But whenever you land on a new planet, you want to always make sure to put your incendiary ammo or your disruptor ammo or whatever ammo you use on all your guns and your teammates' guns if they use it. This will obviously change depending on what team you're using and the abilities that you've spec'd towards, but the ammo abilities are fantastic. There's just something about them that are really useful. And you might notice that I said Tali a lot when I mean Liara. For some reason I've got Tali on the brain. No idea why. It might be because, spoiler alert, I pissed the bitch off so much in my first playthrough that she killed herself. And I didn't mean to, because I do like Tali. It was not my intentions, but, the more I listen to Legion, the more I become a bit of a Geth sympathizer, because I like Legion. The dude's fucking awesome. But this is a challenging-ish mission. For the most it's simple, but there's a section coming up where there's going to be a bunch of brutes and a bunch of just the normal Reaper soldiers that look like Turians, and it can get really challenging really fast. And there's a couple of spots you can use to make the brutes a bit more manageable, but they can follow you to them, and there is some really hokey detection on the brute's charge. And what I mean by this is, there are times when he'll charge at you, and you do a well-placed time roll, and you'll evade him, and you'll not take any damage. There are other times where you roll, and Shepard will get caught on some invisible geometry, and he'll roll, but he'll not get further away, and it'll still punch you. Or other times where you're pressing roll, and Shepard just doesn't respond. Because there's a couple sections in this game where I'm bashing A for Shepard to do a sideways roll to get me into cover to stop me from being shot, but for some reason there's another command that he's doing at that moment in time that I cannot cancel for the life of me, so I end up just sidestepping, getting shot and taking massive damage. And there's an area later on where we go back to the Citadel where you're going to see this in full effect, and it nearly cost me my life. But there is the M97 Viper, which is another sniper rifle. That one is an automatic one. It's a semi-automatic, should I say. It's not single shot, but because of that it's a lot weaker. And there is an upgrade to the shotgun. There's the scimitar, or the scimitar depending on how you pronounce it, which is a pretty beast one. But what I would recommend here is, before you go and talk to the chief, you want to go around all these areas picking up as much as you can. Even if you have no interest in reading the data pads, you can still get experience for some of them, so it's worth trying. And once you've done that, you want to go to the one just in front of me there and speak to the Turian leader. And he's going to introduce us to our mission. And I've got to say that, don't get me wrong, I like this game a lot. I do have a lot of problems with it. And one of them is some of the game design is so fucking copy-paste, There's no real effort gone into some of the objectives. For instance, on this mission, effectively, all you're doing is, he tells you to go here, and the wall comes down so you can go into an arena, fight a bunch of dudes. Then you go back to the camp, he tells you to go to the eastern side, you go through another one of those doors, comes down, you fight in an arena, and you do that another time, and that's it. And I know they're at war, I know that there's got to be a lot of shooting, and whatever, clunky expositional thing they can do to link the shooting is best, but at the same time, I expect a little more from my Mass Effect, and it would just be nice to have a bit more engaging, mission objectives sometimes, because there are moments of this game where the pacing dramatically changes, and if there was just more of those moments, it would be really interesting, but a lot of it just devolves into this, cover-to-cover shoot-em-up, and Mass Effect's never really been that for me personally. And maybe I'm just biased, because I do actually think that the first one is the best. I know technically that game is a fucking mess, the frame rate, the hitching, all that kind of stuff makes it almost unplayable when you go back, but I just liked the fact that you spent almost as much time walking around, talking to people, landing on planets, exploring, as you did shooting, and it definitely moved towards being a more action-based game. Even more so on this, because there's an option in the menu that actually might make Insanity a little bit easier if you choose it, where you can change how the game plays. You can change to make it more dialogue focused or more combat focused, and depending on which one you select, will actually make all its counterparts easier. So if you're struggling on Insanity, that could be a really good tip to make the game a little bit more manageable. But this area here, you're going to get attacked by a lot of husks. Your main strategy for husks are to literally annihilate them before they get close. If you can somehow funnel them towards you in a line, if you drop a singularity, they'll all run into it because they're a bunch of dumb bastards, and it'll make them very easy. If they get close to you, they can grab you, and if they grab you, goodbye to a large amount of your life. You're going to see that later on in this video because I get surprised by one. And it's completely my fault, people. You'll probably have no issue. But I was actually watching an anime called Rurouni Kenshin while I was recording this guide, and I had no volume on, so I was relying on my eyes alone, and I did not hear the sneaky bastard creep up behind me, and he grabbed me. And you're going to see what it does, because they don't fuck about. This section here as well, I made a mistake because I was so eager to skip the controls, skip the dialogue, that I picked Liara to be down here with me instead of the big brute guy, Big Old Vega, and it's not so much a mistake in gameplay, because Liara's just as good at killing the husks, but she's not quite as good at surviving when they swarm her. And you'll notice in a moment, she gets a bunch of them around her, and they just gang rape her face. There's nothing she can do. She goes down, and it means that everybody's looking at me. And when you have a full bunch of husks spawning all around you and chasing you down, it means you're in trouble, because it can make it more difficult to run away, get space, turn around and shoot them. But I do a decent enough job. And once you're comfortable with fighting the husks, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with them. Just bear in mind, the detection on their swipe is bullshit. The amount of times I've been punched when it's not even been near me is just silly. But use your grenades, use your roll. Your roll, even though it can be clunky sometimes, even though it can really, hinder your progress, it can save your ass as well. So I always roll to try and stop that grab animation. Because that's what we were all thinking, weren't it, people? What was the one thing Mass Effect was missing? That's right, Ninja Gaiden-esque grabs. Let's give the enemy the ability to instantly kill us pretty much anytime they get close. That sounds like a fun mechanic, Mr. Hudson. Get that in the game. Well, just keep shooting dudes, keep doing your thing. And listen to the beautiful exposition. And a buddy of mine from the Time Cop crew, Aiden, he said a few months back, judging by some videos, that the Mako was back, and I think it was only in one of those really, high-rendered videos. And I've played the full game, and I ain't even fucking gone near a Mako, so I think he's going to be really sad when he finds out that I don't think you can control it. And I've got to say, I am definitely a Mako sympathizer, because it was a bag of shit, it was annoying, it was frustrating when you first used it, but there's just something special about that vehicle. I mean, it was some of the clunkiest controls you've ever seen, but you got to fly around planets, you got to drive up massive dunes and things, and you got to do some really clunky combat in vehicles, vehicle combat that, belongs in Halo and pretty much Battlefield and nothing else. And I do miss it, because it did break up the gameplay. But I do not miss being insta-killed by Geth Colossuses, though they fucking sucked. But now that you've cleared this area out, you want to move back to the command base, and there's going to be another turret section, which you're going to see quite a lot in this game, which is kind of funny. Because, they're nothing new, but it's new to Mass Effect, so why not, throw a bunch of them at you? And there's a lot of stuff like that, actually, on this game. Mantling. It's almost like Shepard's finally realised he can climb over, ankle-deep walls. It's like, dude, it's a 2-foot wall. You could have climbed over it in any game, but you just decided that on this one, it was such a cool thing that every single time you're traversing to a new area, it involves climbing up tiny surfaces. He's always on his hands and knees. He's like a child in a play area. And the levels are designed in such a way that you're always climbing things. It's weird, so weird. It's like mantling's this big new thing. I'm not surprised it's not on the back of the box. Xbox Live, 2-player co-op, mantling gameplay. It's just weird. This playthrough will also be following the Renegade wheel, but that's not because I wanted to. It's just because I held the analog down to the bottom left and pressed the 2 buttons to skip the dialogue. And I've got to say, if you're committing to an evil playthrough of this game, you're going to have to, completely get rid of your morals, because it gets pretty fucking rough. Shepard he pulls his gun on everybody. He doesn't even care if he's his best mate. It's so silly. It's like it could be his grandma dying in a bed, and he's got a gun in her mouth asking for her inheritance. It's ridiculous. And I only realised how much I was invested in the characters when it came to a point, and it's like, I don't want to make this decision because I know what he's going to do. And a little warning for people when you play through, your decisions are pretty binary. They make it out that there's a lot of choice, but a lot of the time there doesn't seem to be that much. And if you're talking to a character in a dire circumstance and you have the choice between good or bad, one of them is going to get that character killed. Every time. And it doesn't matter how attached you are to them or how cool they are, they're gonna fucking die. And it sucks. It really sucks. And I need to figure out the best way to save all the people I like, because I lost so many people that I would never ever remotely want to get rid of because they're too cool. But hopefully on my third playthrough we'll figure that shit out. But this is one of those survive areas, and this is where the game is at its laziest in my opinion. It pretty much just says, here's a big open area filled with chest-high walls, survive for 10 minutes while we throw a bunch of enemies at you, and it's disappointing, but the game is full of it, and I don't know, I like this game a lot, and it sounds like I'm shitting on it, and I'm not by any means, but I've got to say I'm a little bit disappointed with it, and it's not because I had high expectations, it's just because a lot of the things I love about Mass Effect are absent. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but you can't fucking talk to people. You run around these busy places, and you run around and there's all these dudes stood about, and you go up to them and you can't even press A to talk. You've got to either listen to the conversation like some retard Facebook rapist, or there's one dude you can talk to, and you interact with them. And I just think it's kind of sad that you've got more things to say to a Vina, who is essentially a VI that tells you, you know, where to go in places, than any of the people in the world. And I'm kind of worried, actually, because I want to go back to that planet where Carrie-Anne Moss is. I think it's Ilium. That place where it's got, you know, all those clubs that you went to in Mass Effect 2, and it's all throbby, you know, dancey, ravey, techno stuff. And she's kind of like the kingpin lady who owns the club and does all the dirty work. And I want to go back there and have loads of quests to do and enjoy myself in that universe. And I just have this feeling that I'm going to go to it and there's going to be a bunch of people dancing and I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody but the bartender. And the bartender's just going to be like, "Do you want a drink, Shepherd?" And that's it. That's my biggest fear at this moment. Because for all intents and purposes, this is really gone action based, and a lot of the talking and the side quests and the missions and stuff are all secondary now, and I don't like it. But whenever you're in an environment, it really does pay dividends to search every nook and cranny that you can. It'll take a couple of minutes out of your schedule to get to the next area in the next cutscene, but you'll find upgrades, you'll find credits, you'll find all sorts of bits of information as well, and it really helps. It really does. And I've got Garrus at this moment in time on my party, which I've not mentioned, and he does have some really cool abilities. He has armor piercing rounds, which are really good. He has the ability, I think, to use Overload, which is fantastic against shield enemies. It's one of the most powerful abilities on the game when used correctly. But I don't think I use it too much because there's not really that much need. But this is a turret section anyhow. And the turret sections are gay because you have to reload the fucking turret. And this... We've gone from a universe which had infinite ammo in every gun, the only difference is you had to manage the overheating on them, to everything has the same ammo, to turrets have to be reloaded by, you know, rubbing one off on the bottom of it for a few seconds, right when the enemies get, you know, at their thickest. And it's just really crazy. I don't know, man. I like turret sections in games, but you should never give them ammo. I think Gears of War 2 suffered the most from that, when you had to cool the Troika down, and they didn't tell you on the screen that you had to cool the Troika down, so if you started on hardcore or you tried insane, that Derrick section where you were shooting at the fucking Reavers, it were instant death. There was nothing you could do, you just couldn't kill it. It felt like the game was glitched, it was awful. But just keep spraying and spraying and spraying, and this section's going to end when a Brute turns up, and a Brute is... I'm not too sure what it is, because the Reavers, as we know, they assimilate the form of whatever race they take over, and then they change them slightly. This thing, fuck knows what it is. It's huge. and it does not have any projectile-based attacks. This thing can only hurt you if it gets close, and you want to use that to your ability. And if you're any good at, you know, playing with Berserkers on Gears of War, or, you know, dicing with death, getting really close and evading and all that good stuff, you should pretty much be able to deal with the brutes. The only time they become even a remote problem is when they've got buddies with them. And this is something that Mass Effect 3 does in earnest. It does it all the fucking time, and it's really cheap. It takes away a lot of the fun of the challenge, because they'll throw these big guys at you that rush you, and as soon as you move out of cover to evade the big dude, you're getting peppered by the little bastard 200 yards off in a corner who's got perfect aim, and he's just stripped your shield and murdered you before you knew where you were. And it sucks. It sucks a lot. It sucks almost as bad as when you're tapping A to go into cover all panicky and Shepard mantles out of cover and gets you killed. But thanks for watching, guys, and you take care now.